The arrival of spring around here is usually marked by rain and rhubarb. I had the afternoon to myself and some rhubarb that I bought at the farmer's market. So I decided to bake some rhubarb coffee cake. I used the recipe that I normally use for berry cakes. It's an old-fashioned recipe with lots of eggs and butter, and I love it for how versatile it is. I've used it with all sorts of fruit, and also with none at all, just cinnamon. I made it with freshly milled spelt, because that's what I normally use for sweet items, but it would work just as well with soft wheat or even all-purpose flour. I do recommend freshly milled flour, not just for health reasons, but also because it stores the liquidity better, which makes it easier to integrate fruit without the cake getting soggy. And also, it stays moist for longer, which was particularly good in this case because I was by myself and I didn't intend to eat it all in one day. The cake is suitable for freezing, so you could make a double batch and put some in the freezer. But without freezing, the cake will keep for 2 to 3 days, so my family will have some when they come back. I bought some rhubarb because my own rhubarb in the garden was only planted in last fall, but I'm really looking forward to using it next year, provided it'll still be there. We have too many ants in the garden and they love it, which is relatable because I love rhubarb too. Sitting on the porch, peeling and cutting rhubarb together with my grandma is a dear childhood memory to me. She would always get excited when she found it at the grocery store or on the farmer's market. It's only there for such a short time. It's not offered everywhere, especially not at a good quality. I suppose it doesn't sell as well as fruit does, because it's something that you don't just buy and eat. Somebody has to prepare it, and it's quite old-fashioned in that sense, because it can only be put to use if there's somebody there who values it enough to put in the work. But when you have it in your own garden, you plant it once and then it just grows and grows. So that's quite convenient. Speaking of old-fashioned things and convenience, living in the countryside for me doesn't mean just living in a place that looks nice. We have always wanted to go back to a lifestyle that carried more meaning, that made more sense, that acknowledged more what it means to be human, and we spend every day trying to figure that out. Because I wouldn't say it's the solution to idealize the past. I know from both of my grandmothers that they absolutely didn't think everything was better when they were young. They actually thought most things had improved. And years ago, when I had a job at my church, I had so many heartbreaking life stories that happened between the 1930s and 1960s that it really doesn't make me want to live in those times. But some things were a lot better in the past. And one thing that I'd like to get back to is more self-reliance, because I think it's pretty scary to be so dependent on technology and delivery chains. I also think we are made to use our hands and to do physical work. Now, I can't do heavy physical work, but I can work in the kitchen and I can knit and I can mend things. And I would say it makes me feel more real or more alive. So that's what we're trying to figure out in our daily lives. What progress is actually an improvement and what used to be better in the past? From a practical point of view, from the perspective of health and happiness, and from the perspective of meaning and purpose. So speaking about what to keep from the past and what to modernize, I wanted to show you something. And that is this item that I found on the attic the other day. I'm not entirely sure why it was there, but it's just something I found and I think it's fascinating. Look. It's obviously a flattening iron, but it has this rather large chimney at the top. And one large flap here. That's for putting in the coals. And a small one at the back for heat regulation. It's so rusty, unfortunately. My mother-in-law must have thrifted it, and she probably bought it because she wanted to try using it. But I don't think she did more than once. It's surprisingly light for a coal iron, and it was made this light on purpose because this large chimney shows us that it was made for long ironing sessions. Normal coal irons didn't have a chimney at all. You've probably seen them before. So this is really unusual, and they were made like this for very large households or for workshops where a lot of ironing was done. Tailors and seamstresses, for example. And I really like the thought of ironing without electricity. So I wish I could get a newer one, but I don't think I'd use it in my everyday life. It just looks pretty and unique, and that's why I took it down from the attic. Laundry is the part of homemaking that I really don't enjoy at all. And so I must admit I'm not managing it too well. Now the other day our washing machine broke. We need a new one. And dryers aren't all that common here. I've never had one. You can get them. It's no problem to obtain a tumble dryer, but it's just not that common. People use a clothesline, and that's what I've been doing. But I saw these heaps of laundry piling up all the time. It wasn't such a problem until recently because I was a stay-at-home mum and I had the time to take care of it. But about 6 months ago, my husband and I found that it simply wasn't feasible anymore. And I got a dog. And so I have trouble getting the laundry done. And I decided to get a washer dryer for the first time in my life. And I'm really excited about that. I'm really looking forward to when it arrives and I can try it out. And I think that will be such an improvement and really make my life easier. This is just one example of, on one hand, wishing to have a functioning coal iron, and on the other hand, buying my first washer dryer because I really want the laundry to be less work. But on a sunny day, I think nothing beats a clothesline because clothes just smell so much better when they've been dried outdoors. You could of course make this cake with a crumb topping, but I decided to make some almond crunch instead. The cake had turned out just the way I'd hoped. However, I had been a bit overcautious with the rhubarb because I hadn't been sure about the liquidity. But it turned out I could have used a bit more rhubarb, and also I could have just stirred it into the batter. And by the way, I just realized I may have said dough instead of batter at the beginning of this video. Sorry about that. So this will be a long and quiet evening. And I remember what my grandma used to do when she had nothing to do, which wasn't that often. Because she lived with us and she looked after me when I was little. But when she didn't have anything to do, what she did was sit down, have a cup of coffee or tea, and just look out of the window and watch the birds or watch the sunset or watch the rain or watch the clouds drifting by. What she really did was just look out of the window, which to most people today seems too little, too boring. And I think since the sky and the coffee and the birds haven't changed, it's us who have changed, and maybe that's something that we would benefit from getting back to. Little scenes of life that we see everywhere all the time and just value them more. And that's something I really want to learn from the past and to preserve. If you bake this coffee cake, please leave a comment to let me know how it turned out and what kind of flour and fruit you used. Hope to see you back next time. Bye!